to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I'm Stu Whiffin, joining me always, Blake Harrison. You all right?
I'm fine. Why did you start so quickly after we did the clap? It was supposed to be like, we're in the new studio now.
This is all new.
And it's all new. We don't know what we're doing. And was for the editing purposes, we have to do like a 1, 2, 3 and then a big clap to sync up all the sound. And I literally just went, clap. You went, hello. It's like, it's going to be nothing there. There's going to be like an immediate clap and then go.
Well, you told me off last time because I clapped along as well last time. I thought we was all just sort of giving each other a little round of applause before we started. Well, look.
It looks better, but the bones of the show are still us idiots and we don't know what we're doing. That's basically
we've made that very transparent that we don't really know what we're doing. And this is the first time the cameraman has left us to our own devices as well. So this could go badly wrong.
We're looking at 3 red lights and we're just waiting for one of them to go off and then it'd just be an absolute nightmare.
Absolutely. Well, look, you've obviously seen the episode, well, we presume you've seen the episode with MVP, Michael Venom Page, who come and sat exactly where Blake was sitting. We had such a good time chatting to MVP. What a dude he was.
I loved him. He was so, like, the thing is, when you've got someone like MVP who's like, the style is really exciting and there's almost an arrogance in the way he fights.
Yeah.
In terms of like, he's just so flashy. Then you add the celebrations on top of it. You kind of half wondered to yourself, oh, what's he going to be like?
I thought he was going to be quite cocky.
Yeah, and he wasn't at all. He was
so
humble, so nice, really generous with time, super friendly.
Massive nerd.
Yeah, but in the best way.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about like Disney movies.
Yep.
We were talking about like, me and him were going off on about Spider-Man and different things and like Marvel stuff and all of that. Loved it. What a great guy. I'd love to have him back. He was such a great guy. And I can't wait to see where he ends up. So if you haven't checked out the episode yet, check out the episode.
Yeah, you put him on trial.
I put him on trial. I put MVP on trial. I think the power went to my head a little bit. But we put MVP on trial. We interrogated him a bit, tried to find out where he was going next. And we have to go and watch the episode and see how that went and see what happened. I don't know what camera to look at. I don't know. Look
at that with Sport for Choice.
It's like, I feel like I'm like...
You know what you're doing. This is what you do for a living.
I've never done stuff like this. Like, this is like, I feel like Ron Burgundy in Anchorman. I'm just like... I'm looking like, is there going to be an auto cue? And it's just like...
No, there's no auto cue. We're straight in and we're talking UFC Fight Night in Austin at the Moody Centre.
Oh, that doesn't sound good, does it?
No. Where are you having a scrap? Things are going to get moody at the Moody Centre.
The Moody Centre. Everyone's going to leave very disappointed.
Love it.
I tell you what, though, I am super excited about this fight because... I'm a big Arman Sarukian fan. I really think he could do a lot in this division, especially... Like, you look at Arman Sarukian's career so far, 10 fights in the UFC, lost his debut to Islam Makhachev. No shame in that. No shame in that. And also gave him one of his toughest fights, I think.
Lost to Gamrot, yeah?
By a slightly iffy split decision, I'd say. So he's lost to 2 really good fighters.
Yeah.
One of them was his debut, and it's Islam Makhachev. The other one was Gamrot in a fight that you could easily score for Sarukian, I think.
So aside from... Let's not count the Islam fight, because Islam, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So Gamrot, like, great opponent.
Yep.
Has he fought at the level that Beneil Dariush has fought at?
I think you could argue that Gamrot is sort of that level. Dariush did beat Gamrot, but I think when you watch that fight, it was a close fight. And I think you could argue Sarukian beat Gamrot. So Dariush would definitely be the best win on his career by a long way. Oh, look at this! Look at you!
I know.
Getting fancy here,
listeners. You're missing all the action here. You need to get yourselves over to YouTube because we've got a big screen and we're pulling up like little pictures of the fighters and everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's good bodies on them. Do you want to comment on that? I mean, Dariush looks a little bit pixelated.
He's a bit pixelated.
Sarukian, though, looks like an Adonis.
Yeah, bronzed.
Looking bronzed. Looking good. But yeah, no, I think Dariush would definitely be the best name on his resume.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's beyond him. I mean, he's 27 years old, Sarukian, incredible wrestler and grappler, and I think his striking's really improving. Like, you watch some of his fights. I was watching some to research for this, and I can't remember exactly who I'm thinking of now, but maybe it was the Gamrot fight. His left kick, like his front leg kicks, are really surprisingly good for someone you think of, Sarukian's a wrestler, he's going to get you down, mash you up, all those things. He throws a sneaky good kind of like front leg high kick that's got no wind up to it or anything like that. And I think he could really do well against Dariush. I think it's going to be so interesting watching. I know you're Mr. Stand-em-up, so I don't know how much.
No.
You're going to get funny about the grappling.
No, but what I think, to actually go back to our interview with MVP, where we spoke to him about the potential fight, should he go to the UFC with Wonderboy, he said basically it could cancel it out because we're both technical strikers. It might just be loads of feints and I think because both of these fighters, both Beneil and Arman, are both got that wrestling fundamentals.
Yep.
And I think that we could end up seeing not a kind of ground game. I think we could start seeing some striking. I think it might mix it up a little bit.
The only reason I think it'll definitely be a mixture, a mixture of the martial arts.
Yeah.
The reason I think that is because when you look at Dariush versus Gamrot, and when you look at Arman Sarukian versus Gamrot, that's what those fights were. There was a bit of stand up, but they weren't afraid to go. There'll be a lot of fighters that don't want to try and take Dariush to the ground because he's got a good wrestling base, but he's also phenomenal jiu-jitsu. He's got the heel hooks, he's got all that stuff. Dangerous guy to take down. And then there'll be other people that wouldn't have a chance in hell in trying to take Sarukian down because his wrestling base is so good. I think Sarukian's wrestling is better than Dariush's wrestling, but Dariush's jiu-jitsu is better than Sarukian's jiu-jitsu. So we're going to have a really interesting... And I think that's where, when you watch the Gamrot-Dariush fight and the Sarukian-Gamrot fight, the wrestling exchanges and the grappling and the scrambles are actually really exciting. You get, there is a thing of MMA fans being like, the wrestling, stand them up and all that stuff. But when you get wrestlers and grapplers like this, I think the grappling exchanges become just as exciting as the striking exchanges because it is so dynamic, it is so fast-paced. You've got sweeps and scrambles and rolls and changes of positions happening really quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that side of it will be really, really exciting.
So what are we going to see from Beneil here? Because up until the Oliveira fight, he was on a tear and he was
8-fight win streak.
Absolutely fantastic. I'd like to have seen him fight Islam.
Me too.
I think he's got a little bit of a way to go to get that fight now. What are we going to see from Beneil? Are we going to see a Beneil that kind of confidence that you get from, I imagine you get from an 8-fight tear, like that's gone? Are we going to see him, as he took some time out, pulled himself together, and do you think he's going to come out and try and put on something spectacular to avenge that loss?
I think he's going to have to try to, because I think, again, I think he's so far back in the title picture now. I mean, he's only ranked 4th.
Yeah.
But the lightweight division is a division where there's not a huge amount of movement in that kind of top 4-5 positions.
Yeah. And he's not the money fight.
He's not the money fight.
He's surrounded by money fights.
That's it. You've got Chandler, who's holding out for Conor. Conor or Chandler, whoever wins that fight could get a title shot next.
Yeah.
It's very plausible. Poirier is always in the mix for a title shot. I know he's just lost to Gaethje, but he was called up as a potential replacement for Oliveira, wasn't he? So he's never too far away from a title shot. You've got a lot of fighters up there. Oliveira looks like he's probably going to get the next shot against Makhachev. So
is that not confirmed?
It's not, is it?
Is it not? I don't know. Maybe in my head I thought that was confirmed. Maybe it's not. It's
because next
likely.
year you've got the Strickland, Duplessis, Sean O'Malley and Volkanovski, obviously not fighting each other, but that's your January, February, March. I don't think they've confirmed anything after that, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're right, mate.
I think it's all rumours and likely and all that stuff. But Dariush obviously coming off that head kick loss to Charles is going to need to avenge it. And if he loses to Sarukian, I don't think he will ever get a title shot. It's not fair because he was on such a good tear. He shouldn't really have had to face Oliveira in my view. But them's the breaks. And when we've spoken about it before, the fight doesn't end when the fight ends. The fight ends after your post-fight interview in the cage, because at that moment, that's when the world is listening. And when you've got someone like Dariush, as big of a fan of Dariush as I am, when he's in there going, I don't mind, I'll take whoever the UFC gives me, I'll fight 10 more times, all that stuff, you're like...
Pushing you further down the ladder, mate.
It's just
like
not... Yeah, it's not going to work out for you. So I really hope whoever wins this fight, and particularly if it's Sarukian, because I do think that bit of fresh blood in that top 5 would really do the division good, because I think... I don't want to say it gets stale, because we have seen, there's been a lot of talk about the elevator fighters and how, you know, they only want to go up. They're never going to fight down.
Yeah, but as you said, that division's kind of like clogged up
It is
with
a
them
bit.
big names that are being very choice with who they fight and when they fight, and it's stopping people like Arman and that, like, kind of breaking through. Hopefully this will help, and, you know, if it means he ends up getting pushed up to fourth, maybe them fights will be on the cards. But
Well,
it
that's what he
is
needs.
a real kind of blockage of big names that all want the big fights with the big money.
Well, that's it. Gaethje thinks he's earned a title shot. I would agree with him. Oliveira looks like he's getting a title shot, so that's a delay already.
Yeah.
There's a logjam there. You've got, as we mentioned, Chandler waiting for Conor. Who knows what's going on there? Might be UFC 300, but we don't know for sure yet. And then, I mean, at least Gaethje has fought backwards. He fought Fiziev, won. So, you know, that's good. And then Dariush fought Gamrot, and now he's fighting Sarukian because he's coming off of a loss. But it'd be nice if someone like a Poirier went, OK, I'll fight a Gamrot. But equally, I can understand why he wouldn't. He wants big money fights.
It's a fight he could lose, and why would you chance it?
Gamrot's not a big name, but you're not going to get big names in that division until they beat big names in that division. It's a difficult thing to kind of work out, but I think this is going to be a cracking fight.
Yeah. Who are you picking?
I think I'm going to go for Sarukian.
Oh,
I know. I know Dariush would be the best win on his resume, but I just think maybe Dariush mentally coming off that loss to Oliveira, that was a big kind of... I know he wasn't finished by the head kick, but that clearly rattled him. And I just think Sarukian is really, really good. 27, only improving. If he loses Sarukian, he can still get back to a title shot. If Dariush loses, I don't think he'll ever get a title shot. So...
how's he going to get that win?
I think it'll be a decision.
Oh, okay.
I think this is going to be a decision fight, but I think it's going to be a good one, and I think it could be very close.
Okay.
What about you?
Benil, decision.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. All right, there you go.
Well, look, we're going to move on now to Bobby Green versus Dan Hooker. No, we're not. No Dan Hooker.
No Dan Hooker.
Where's Dan Hooker gone?
Dan Hooker's gone. He broke his arm.
Yeah,
I think
it was the same arm, wasn't it?
Same arm that he broke. Was it against Jalen that he broke the arm? Yeah, but this is a good replacement. I mean, look, obviously would have wanted to see Hooker. Hooker's just got a win over Jalen Turner, so that fight maybe meant a little bit more than what this fight does.
Yeah.
But I think that that you couldn't get a better replacement. I mean, for Bobby Green, hopefully it's not too big a change. You've gone from a tall kickboxer to an even taller kickboxer who... I mean, Jalen missed weight by 3 pounds when he fought Dan Hooker. Hopefully that was just a problem in camp, something like that. But Jalen's massive. Like, I've seen him like doing sparring footage with Hamzat Chimaev, and Hamzat is a beast. He's so big. And Jalen was massive as well. Like, they didn't look... Hamzat obviously looked bigger, but they didn't look that far off, and he's fighting so many weight classes below him.
Well, you got to wonder, taking that fight on such short notice... and you got to get down to 155. That could be problematic.
I think it could be problematic. I mean, he's 7 foot tall, so I don't. he's going to struggle to get that.
Doesn't look 7 foot in that image. He looks quite pixelated.
He looks quite pixelated there. We need to work on that. But no. I think he is genuinely about 6'4", 6'3".
Right,
Jalen
okay.
Turner. I mean, for a lightweight, that is absolutely massive.
Yeah, that must be a brutal weight cut.
It must be a bad weight cut because he's not. Like, obviously, he's slim in comparison to, again, like the Sarukians of the world and people like that. But he's still, when you see him out of camp, he's a big lump. He's not like me. He's not like a beanpole type looking fighter. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he does with his weight cut. I think that's going to be a big factor. I think full camp Jalen Turner wins this fight.
Okay.
But we're not dealing with full camp Jalen Turner. We are dealing with what would it be?
Week's notice, pretty much. Maybe
I think
a little over.
2 weeks, two-ish weeks notice. And we've seen that have varied outcomes recently. You look at Volk, you look at Usman, but then you look at Tom Aspinall.
Absolutely.
So we'll have to see. But I think this fight will be good. I don't think there'll be any takedowns in this fight.
This is fun. This has got fun fight all over it. Bobby Green's never in boring fights.
He's never in boring fights. And also, Jalen, in the fight against Dan Hooker, seemed to potentially gas out a bit. That may have been to do with a bad weight cut. But
well, he's coming off a 2-fight win, so it's not just Hooker. He lost to Gamrot.
But that was a split decision that could maybe have gone either way as well. So, and this fight, you're not going to get someone trying to take you down. No. I don't think that's what Bobby Green is going to do. He's going to be hands in his safe
space there. Yeah. And when he's on form, I don't think anyone touches him as far as boxing goes. I think his boxing is ridiculous. Plus, he's going to be talking shit. And I love it. I love watching Bobby Green. He's on a 2-fight win streak over Tony and Grant Dawson.
Yes, well, the Grant Dawson one was surprising. I think everyone expected Grant Dawson to take him out, take him down, submit him, something like that. And he just knocked him out with almost like one of the first punches, didn't he?
Absolutely.
And Bobby Green's not someone you think of as having like knockout power. He's got great hands, but he usually wears you down with his punches. He's not like that one-shot knockout power. But Jalen, being as tall as he is, you would imagine he's going to want to keep the range, keep the length, and try and stop Bobby from getting inside. But I think it's going to be a fun fight, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Turner smashes Bobby up in that first round, and if Bobby survives, given the late notice, given the weight cut issues previously, all those kind of things, I wouldn't be surprised if Bobby Green comes on strong towards the end of the fight, and Jalen's got to try and survive, and we'll maybe round 2 will be like a swing round, and the judges will have a decision to make. But round 1, I think, could be Jalen. Round 3 could be Bobby. And round 2, we don't know. When does Bobby maybe take control of the fight a little bit? I don't know. Equally, one of them could just knock the other one out quite quickly. It's very possible.
Well, I mean, I know we've kind of discussed some of the merits of Bobby Green, but what do you think makes him such a fan favourite? Because he got that fast track to that title shot, didn't he?
He didn't have a title shot.
Sorry, the Islam fight, right?
Well, he took that on short notice. He took that. That was a short notice fight. He just came in. It wasn't a title shot, but was it maybe the last fight that Islam had before?
I think it was, yeah. And he jumped in.
He got the belt.
And that's a big fight to give someone like Bobby Green, who wasn't ranked that highly.
Well, you got to think as well. I can't remember off the top of my head how short notice it was. That
maybe some of the higher ranked fights had fights lined up. I don't know. But what do you think it is that makes? I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think it is? Because he's not. I don't think he's ever going to win a belt.
No.
But look where he is on the card. There's a lot of other stacked people on this card. When we get on to the next fight, in theory, that could be quite easily above Bobby Green, Jalen Turner, or Bobby Green, Dan Hooker.
Yeah.
But Bobby Green's got some star power. And do you think it just comes down to just how he is on the microphone, how he is when he's fighting, the way he talks to opponents, he's boxing? What do you put it down to?
I mean, I'll say in a minute, I think just to underline your point, Dan Hooker, Bobby Green was a 5-round fight. They never do. They very rarely do that for non-title fights, but they never do a co-main event on a fight night that is also 5 rounds. That just never, ever happens. And that goes to show, I think, what the UFC think of Bobby Green, Dan Hooker. Also, the fight they would have put on. Oh, my God, that would have been an absolute war. It would have been...
That blonde hair would have been red again.
It would have been red again. I mean, to be honest, just talking about 5 rounds of Dan Hooker and Bobby Green is making me really upset about the fact that we knock on that fight. But I do think Jalen's a really good replacement. I'm a big fan of Jalen. But what makes Bobby, I think, such a fan favourite, and I think with anyone, it's fight style. I think if Justin Gaethje, I don't think of Justin Gaethje as having this amazing personality. He might have, but I don't think of Justin Gaethje and go the way he talks on the mic or the way he does it. I think first and foremost, you have to have a good fight style. And I think that Bobby Green has got that. He throws hands, he gets hit, he gives the hits. He's got he's got great head movement, and I think people kind of enjoy someone being in the pocket and just evading shots all the time. And he's a talker inside the cage. I can't think of one thing that Bobby Green has said outside of the cage that has really stuck with me.
What did he say his new name was?
King. Well, his nickname's King, isn't it? He's a Bobby King Green, but then he just wanted to be seen as king.
Like Prince.
Like Prince. But, you know, older. 'Cause you're a king. I mean, that is what it is, whatever. I can't think of anything where I go, oh, I really want to hear Bobby Green talk about a subject matter, or he's got great jokes, or he's got anything like that. It's the fight style. It's always the fight style. And I think for any fighter, if you're a big wrestler and you're kind of just taking people down, grinding out decisions with your wrestling, if you're like a Derek Brunson, for example, you need to try and have a really good personality as well to try and counterbalance that. If you're a great striker, if you're Sean O'Malley or Conor McGregor, I don't think having the personality makes you a superstar to go with it. But if you were just doing that and knocking people out and maybe calling it beforehand and then doing some nice bits outside the cage, in the cage in your post-fight kind of speech.
Yeah.
I think that will carry you so far. That will make you a star. The extra bits that Sean and Conor and Israel Adesanya and people like that have got make you the superstar.
Yeah.
But I think you can be a star. I mean, the Cowboy Cerrone, we had a bit more personality maybe than Bobby Green. And also, you look at his Instagram and he's always doing like dirt bike riding or like jumping out of a plane.
Without a parachute, sort of thing he does.
He's just doing that. He's just like riding a horse out of the plane and just, like whatever. But yeah, so maybe that's a bad comparison. But I think in terms of in the cage, fighters that very clearly are like, any place, anytime, anywhere. I'll get in the cage. I'll talk some shit. Like Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
Talk some shit to you in the cage. Now, Kevin Holland does have a bit of personality out the cage. There's stories about him, like, being a bit of a vigilante and, like, stopping multiple... He's, like, stopped multiple criminals from doing something in, like, Houston or wherever it is that he lives. And he does some funny stuff on the Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But, again, the fact that he is chatting away in the cage and he is... putting good fights on. Yeah, that's the main thing, and that's what Bobby does.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on. Oh,
this is really interesting.
It's so interesting. So obviously, this is at 155.
What we've realised is people listening to this on podcast can't see this massive screen. Yeah. So you've just changed the screen to Font versus Figueiredo, and we went, and then just started to talk about it. Anyone listening to this is like, what are you talking about? What's happened? But yes, we're talking about Font and Figueiredo. Figueiredo coming up to 135 from 125. How do you think this one goes?
I think it's up. Rob Font, I love Rob Font.
Yeah, me too.
And if you and I've got to do something to put him away.
Even Marlon Vera, who was smashing him to pieces, couldn't finish him.
Yeah, I think this is a big step up for Figgy. Font's just come off of that Sandhagen loss.
Yep.
Don't really want to talk any more about that. You had to win over...
do that. Like, Sandhagen tore his tricep.
I know. Look, I love Corey Sandhagen, former guest of the show, Corey Sandhagen. Go check out that episode. Obviously, other than that, he's got losses to Aldo and Cheeto. So he's only lost to the best, Rob Font. And so I think Figgy's overstepped this. I think he's stepping up into a division of absolute fucking killers, and I don't think it's going to work for him.
I think you could be. I'm a big advocate of size mattering in all walks of life. But I think that you got that a bit late, did you?
I was really late. I thought you was just asking if me and you had a fight. I didn't realise you was talking about your dinkle.
You love the word dinkle. But yeah, no, I think Figgy going up. I mean, it's so tricky for those fighters that clearly going to 125 was killing him. Do you know what the weirdest thing that we haven't even mentioned is? The weirdest thing about this whole thing is that Figueiredo is fighting someone other than Brandon Moreno.
He's fought him, I think, I looked up on Tapology, he's fought him 17 times. It's mental.
It's mental. So many times. I thought it was 24. But no, it's the last 4 fights in a row have all been Brandon Moreno. He has fought Brandon Moreno since late 2020.
I think if you look
3 years, he's only fought Brandon Moreno.
Go on the UFC website and you look at the stats. So far, Figueiredo has spent 34% of his entire life in an octagon with Brandon Moreno.
Where do you get these verified facts from, Stu?
Okay. I will not reveal my source, mate.
But yeah, no, I think it is strange not to see him always fight Moreno, but I'm sure it's welcome for Figueiredo and the fans to not just see that fight again.
Do you think he's moved up because he just thinks, look, I'm not going to get a title shot quickly?
No, I think it's a weight cut thing. I think it's a bit. Yeah, I think he was killing himself getting down to 125. But I do think he's still going to be slightly small for this division. And Font is rangy. He's got a fantastic jab. I would say Figueiredo's best bet might be to try and implement some grappling in this. But given that he's moving up in weight, maybe he's going to struggle with that. Unless his technique is absolutely on point with the wrestling, will he be able to hold Font down, given that he's going up in weight? I'm not sure that he will. So,
I'd like 5 rounds of this.
Really? I think 3's enough.
No, I like Rob Font when he gets into them later rounds. Things just get dirty and
He didn't need the later rounds against Yanez, did he?
No.
He absolutely smashed Yanez. That was absolutely phenomenal. But I think that the thing with this is actually a really good fight. It's good matchmaking from the UFC. Not in terms of, I do think Font's going to win. You clearly think Font's going to win as well. But I think what you do when you put someone who's been a previous champion in lower weight class like Figueiredo against someone like Rob Font is you're going, this is a really great measurement of how you would do in this division. If you're a previous champion and you beat Rob Font, that's it. You're a top 5 guy. You could potentially have one more fight and then go for the belt because you've got the name value, you've got all that stuff. And if you don't, I think it's fair to say that you will never fight for a belt at bantamweight.
I think if somehow he pulls off a win over Rob Font, I don't know where he goes next because you look at your Sandhagens and things like that. They're going to absolutely swamp him. I think he's entering into a world that perhaps he doesn't really want to be in. I think it'll be messy. I think there's too many big fighters that are just going to be way too big for him.
I don't know. I mean, let's look at it. Jan's not that big. Merab is not that big. And you've got to think, Sean O'Malley's fighting Cheeto in March, is it?
Yep.
I mean, he's probably not going to fight again for ages after that. He's probably going to try and look at boxing someone or something, whatever Sean wants to do. Merab's the number 1 contender, really, in that division. Should be fighting for the belt. Corey Sandhagen has got a claim to that as well. But they're going to have to find fights because...
Don't get me wrong, I do think Jan Figgy could be a good fight.
I think it could be a great fight.
Yeah.
I
didn't consider putting Jan in the mix there.
But I think Merab as well might need a fight, and getting a win over a former champion could be a good thing for Merab.
That could actually be the one thing that could really do him a favour because I just can't see Merab getting rushed into a title shot. I don't think he's got that kind of superstardom. No. There's a little bit of backstory of him and O'Malley, but I do think that a win over Figgy, like you say, that could be the golden ticket.
Yeah, I mean, golden ticket might be a bit strong because it's not his division and it's not like Figgy's a huge star. But I think just having what's that? You've got some messages there. So you need to get rid of
popping up on the screen.
I think it's good. And what we've just stumbled upon there is if Figgy wins, him versus Jan is a really cracking fight.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that fight. So actually, I'm even more excited about this now. But can we move on? Have you got anything else to say?
Oh. Who are we moving on to? Who are we moving on to? Listeners of the podcast. Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum. Oh, I think this could be a cracker.
I'm so interested in this fight.
Yeah.
I think this could arguably be... I don't think it's going to play out necessarily as the best fight on the card, but going into it, I've got a lot of questions that are going to get answered from this fight, and it makes it maybe arguably the most intriguing fight on the card.
Tell me why.
Tell me why. We're going to get sued for that, aren't we? Backstreet Boys are coming for us, guys. Help us out. We're going to start a Kickstarter to try and help our legal fees against the Backstreet Boys. So Sean Brady coming off a year away.
Lost to Bilal.
Lost to Bilal. That was his first ever loss. It'd be interesting to see what improvements Sean Brady has made. I was quite high on Sean Brady. I thought he was very, very good. But I think he showed in the Chiesa fight, in the third round, and in the Bilal fight, there's some holes in his striking game that he needs to sort out. And if he can't get someone down and keep them down, he might have some issues. Kelvin Gastelum only won 2 of his last 7 fights.
He was having a rough ride until Chris Curtis.
But when you look at who he's lost to, it doesn't read that bad to me. Israel Adesanya, no shame. Robert Whittaker, no shame. A slightly controversial one to Darren Till that people thought that Kelvin won. Cannonier, arguably he's got a win over Sean Strickland, the champion at the moment, and not a bad fighter at all. And there was the Jack Hermanson fight where I think he just made a bad mistake and got stuck in a heel hook within the first few seconds of the fight. So, and he was always undersized. He should never have been at middleweight. I think you had a go at me for quote unquote like fat shaming him at one point in a previous episode. Because I was saying this.
I love Kelvin, you know that.
But I was saying this with love. He needs to put more effort in to the weight cut side of things. He had a fine career up at middleweight. It was fine. 2 of his last 7 matches doesn't sound fine, does it? But I think him at welterweight is where he should have been. He's got a fantastic wrestling base. Kelvin Gastelum has got all these accolades from high school and college with his wrestling. He never really uses it. He's like a Justin Gaethje in that sense. He never uses his wrestling. He just wants to strike. And he's crisp boxing out. I mean, you asked Michael Bisping. I know Bisping had one eye at the time and he was coming off of a loss to George St. Pierre.
No excuse having one eye. God's sake, man.
But I think that Kelvin has got really good striking and he could really stuff a lot of Brady's takedown attempts. And if he can make that weight cut work for him and keep his durability, Kelvin Gastelum's got an amazing chin on him. And I really think he could do well at welterweight.
Right, you ready?
Go on.
Strap yourself in.
All right, here we go.
I really hope he wrestles.
Go on.
I just want to see some wrestling. I don't want anyone...
Are you feeling all right?
No, I want to see Kelvin... I want to see Kelvin Gastelum wrestle. I want some wrestling. I don't want him to be stood up either. I think that's where his strength is. Do you think
I don't think this is the fight for that, by the way.
Do you think the cut's going to zap him?
That's the question. Is the cut going to zap him of his cardio? Is he going to zap him of his durability? Because Kelvin Gastelum can take a punch and he can go all night. He is, I think, going to suffer a little bit from the weight cut, but hopefully not too much. And if he can still keep that durability and that cardio going, I think he's a really bad stylistic matchup for Brady. Unless Brady has filled those holes in his game over the last year in his striking, I can really see him struggling to get Gastelum and keep him up against the fence or to take him down. I think Gastelum's got one of those. He's got such a crisp 1-2. You watch Gastelum, he's boxing, the way he moves, he's really, really crisp hands.
And experience in buckets
and experience.
Now.
I think he could cause Brady a lot of problems. And I think welterweight Kelvin Gastelum is something I've been wanting to see for a long time. He missed weight about 3 times in his welterweight career in the UFC, which is why he was forced to go up to middleweight. It must have just been a discipline issue. Because
let's hope he gets it right.
We don't look at Kelvin Gastelum and look at him the way we were looking at Arman Sarukian's body earlier or whatever. You know, it's like he's not ripped to shreds. There is room to cut. And that sounds offensive, but it's just the fact of the matter. So welterweight Gastelum, I think, is something I've wanted to see for a long time. And I think he could actually be a big problem for Brady.
I hope so. Not that I've got anything against Sean Brady, but...
You're a Gastelum fan, aren't you?
Ever since...
He was the thing that really got me into UFC in a crazy way was watching that series of The Ultimate Fighter where he was the last pick. He was the last pick, and it was him and Uriah Hall,
and he won it, didn't he?
And he won it against Uriah Hall, which I was gutted about at the time because I was a huge Uriah Hall fan.
Also, that Uriah Hall spinning roundhouse that knocked that guy out. I think apart from Let Me Bang Bro, that's the highlight of any Ultimate Fighter series. Just the silence that fell over that.
And then he was apologising.
Yeah.
You just saw Uriah Hall apologising to this man that was just out of it.
Yeah.
Completely out of it from that kick.
Yeah.
It was he was almost scarier because he was apologising.
Yeah.
He was like just absolutely decimated this guy, and it was like, oh, I'm so sorry, mate. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. It's like, it makes you more scary that you didn't really mean to do it in a way. The other thing that's not mentioned about that is there was another fight on that series where he knocked a guy out from bottom position.
That's right, yeah.
Some guy had him either in mount or he was in his guard or something, and from punches from the bottom, he either knocked him out or got him to quit or something. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, he was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I want to touch on Clay Guida versus Joaquin Silva.
Go on.
I just looked when I see Clay Guida on there, and I always get excited because I like the fact that he comes rocking out to some metal, and normally the hair's there. The hair's now gone. Clay Guida started in the UFC in 2006. 17 years he has been in the UFC with a record of 38-23-0. I mean, that's some record. I mean, you look through who he's fought. He has fought everyone. My only thing now is I don't ever want to see fighters whose hair retire from their head before they retire from the octagon.
But is his hair retired from his head? Did he just cut his hair?
Yes. They've been kind with the airbrush in the UFC there on that picture. He's disappearing. And like Clay Guida without his hair, come on, no one wants to see that in the octagon.
As long as he's still burping in between rounds, I'm quite happy with it.
I forgot about that.
There's just them huge belches as well.
Yeah.
But I love that he's considerate enough to really shove people out of the way while he just goes and just does this massive burp. Absolutely huge burps.
We should put that into the podcast. We should start doing that.
When we upgrade this podcast again, can we just get like a button with like different sound effects on it? One of them is Clay Guida's burp.
Let's do that.
That'd be great.
I want to Let Me Bang Bro. Oh. That'd be great.
Let Me Bang Bro, Clay Guida's burp. That'd be great.
I mean, if Clay Guida gets the win or lose, surely it's got to be time to just knock it on the head now.
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Because he upset the UFC, I think, in his last outing, didn't he? Didn't he do some sort of post-fight thing about retirement and then literally not retire? I can't remember it clearly, but I think Dana was like, what the fuck's he doing? Like, I think it was like...
Did he go over to get the mic as if he was going to retire? And they were like, well, we've got to let Clay Guida retire on camera because obviously... Yeah. But I think the UFC were like, we need to keep this show going. Yeah. But you got to give Clay his time to retire.
Yeah.
And then he said something, I don't know, was it about like one of his sponsors or
something ridiculous,
something like that. And then, there you go.
Okay, right.
Misha Cupcake Tate.
Yes.
Move on to that.
Let's get on to Misha.
Cupcake is back. So she had a 4-year absence, came back, beat Marion Renault, and then lost to Caitlin Vieira, then dropped down to 125 and lost to Lauren Murphy. Now she's going back up against Julia Avila at 135.
Why is Misha Tate fighting? Legacy? She don't need legacy. It's Misha Tate. You know, she's been champ. She's absolutely fought the best. And
well, she never defended the belt. Maybe she wants to prove that she can be a 2-time champ. Maybe she wants the money.
Is that going to happen? Is she going to get the belt? I think
absolutely she has a chance of getting the belt.
Really?
100%. She is by far the biggest. Bantamweight is a rudderless division at the moment.
Okay.
Like, who's going for the belt? Myra Bueno Silva and Raquel Pennington. They're not stars. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Misha's struggles will be that she's not as good as she was.
Yeah.
So I don't think she will win the belt. Because I don't think she'll be good enough to win the belt. But will she get a title shot? If she beats Avila and then has one more win, I think Misha Tate is always 2 wins away from a title shot in this bantamweight division, because I don't think that there's much going on in that division. There's no stars. There's nobody. The fight what I'd really love to see is if Miesha Tate beats Avila, rematch Holly Holm, and then the winner of that fight will probably get a title shot. And I know you're screwing your face up, and I get that people at home would be like, why do we want to see that? Who else is there, really?
Yeah, I
know Peña's got to come back and have a fight and everything, but I'm like...
Do you think that she's looking at it and thinking, this is my chance? You know,
I think she's looking at it and thinking, this is a wide-open division.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest star in this division. I am always 2 fights away from a title shot and maybe some good money from all of that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, why not? Why not give it a go? I think, again, if she loses to Avila, I think that's it. It's done.
Yeah.
That's it. But if she beats Avila, throw her in with Holly Holm again.
That's a fight I'll be interested in.
That's a fun fight, right?
Yeah.
Because
Two
that
legends,
first fight,
right.
Holly Holm, I think, was winning that fight relatively comfortably until the end when Miesha got the rear naked choke. So I think throw her in with Holly Holm again is kind of a good little legends fight. They're both the biggest names in that division now by a long way without Nunes in the mix. So I think it makes sense. And then the winner of that fight could easily get a title shot because they'd be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the pay-per-view numbers.
Yeah.
Regardless of who the champion is, whether it's Pennington or Bueno Silva.
Okay. One more fight on the card. There's plenty more fights on the card, but obviously we don't feel the need to sort of talk about everything. We want to talk about all the big fights on the card, but we need to talk about former guests of the show, Veronica Hardy, who takes on Jamie Lynn Horth. Big fans, aren't we? She was so much fun, and it was lovely when we went up to Media Day at the last London card. We bumped into Veronica, and it's good to see. All things are looking very good for the Hardys. Dan absolutely smashing it over at the PFL, and that's only going to get bigger and better with the merger. Jamie Lynn Horth,
undefeated.
What's that? Yeah, 6th fight pro win streak. It's a second out in the octagon for the UFC.
Yeah, she won her decision she won her UFC debut by decision. Sorry, but all the other fights on the regional scene were by finish. 2 rear naked chokes, 3 finishes by strike. By strike, single strike, by strikes. And I didn't have any water with me here, so I'm not like that now. But I fear that the UFC are sort of putting Veronica in potentially against people they think will beat her because of the connection to Dan Hardy.
Don't get me wrong. You know, there's. It's an interesting organisation, let's say that. And do you think they could be that manipulative that they're going to go, all right, we'll throw your missus in against somebody that we think is going to beat her?
I think potentially. I think there is potential for that. I mean, also there's that thing of wasn't there a thing where Dan wasn't allowed? Either he was in her corner at
he wasn't at Media Day with her. He wasn't allowed for the weigh-ins and stuff, I believe.
Yeah, so that is. Whatever, I don't know.
There's a lot of politics involved.
There's a lot of politics
we probably
involved,
will never know about.
And we will never know about. There's a story that UFC put out, and we had Dan on our show talking about how, for his money, that's just not true.
Yeah.
A lot of what was put out, and they were trying to kind of smear him a bit.
A big loss to the pundit, because he was one of the best commentators for the UFC, if not the best.
And I'm sure he's doing a phenomenal job still within the PFL. And also he's the head of European fighter operations or something like that. So he's great. Yeah. So I'm sure he's not bothered. He's having a lovely time over in the PFL. I think that Veronica, when she was on our show, was talking about how previously, when she was not doing so well, she had kind of trainers in all sorts of places. And she was spending most of her camps just driving back and forth in the car. She didn't have that one solid kind of head coach and all that stuff. But now with Dan and all that, things have changed. She's evolved a lot as a fighter. So I feel like this is going to be really interesting to see kind of how far Veronica can go.
Yeah.
And then when her contract runs out, whenever that may be, Does she go over to the PFL? Does she stay in the UFC?
I think we're going to see a big shift, Mr. Harrison. When we were talking about Beneil earlier and saying about, Beneil's potentially, a long way from a title shot, are we going to see these people start getting to the end of their contracts? And when it comes to renegotiating, looking at the PFL as it is now and the money that's available there, that's only going to change, you presume, for the better with the merger and the bigger fights with the Bellator fighters. I think it's going to become a very competitive industry. At the moment, obviously, the UFC is always going to be the biggest and the best because of the fighters that they've got there and the money that's thrown at it and the fact that it's the UFC. But I do think that fighters, they're prize fighters. And I do think ultimately they're going to start looking at this organisation that's growing and knowing that there's big money, over there. And I think we're going to see some interesting things. And obviously if you're Veronica Hardy and you're fighting, people that are just coming through on absolute sort of win streaks, and there's an option to go and showcase your skills and earn more money in a different organisation, why would you not do that?
Yeah, I wonder if we can get Dan back on the show and talk about something. So I think the PFL are making big moves, as you say, with the acquisition of Bellator. And the other thing is they didn't pay a penny for it.
Yeah.
It was all stocks.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting
We should have
thing
bought
as
it.
well. We should. We'll give you stocks. We'll give you stocks in the MMA Fan Show, mate.
Exactly.
We'll give you some stocks. You only wanted stocks. You didn't want money. We got loads of stocks. Oh.
I said to you before, if you snooze, you lose. You never listen to me, Blake.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Fuck's sake. Anyway, this event goes down this weekend. I hope you all enjoy it at the Moody Centre in Austin. Moody. How was it? Pretty moody. Thanks ever so much for watching the show. If you're listening to the show, please continue listening however you like to get this content. But we would say, podcast listeners, come over and have a little look because we've got this flashy new studio that we've built, and we're looking to really develop the show. And we've got another guest turning up in a minute for next week's episode. We've got some really fun things coming your way. So even if you're not a big YouTube fan, pop over there, click subscribe, and then you'll get a little notification each week letting you know who we've got on. Follow us on the socials because we keep you up to date. There's going to be loads of nice new clips. Our boy Jamie's working really hard to bring you some amazing stuff. We're really kicking things off over on TikTok as well. So give us a follow on Insta, give us a follow on TikTok. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. And Blake, say something because I've run out of breath.
We're really kicking things off on TikTok. Us two old white grey-haired men. Oh God, we're really kicking things off over on TikTok, guys.
Getting well sick, bro.
Oh, it's going to be lit, bruv. Jesus Christ. You sound a bit more old and white.
Dear, where's my asthma pump? Right, I'm off to have a Werther's Original. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.